Hurricane Irma's impact will be felt by those in the path beyond property destruction and infrastructure issues. Many of those living in mandatory evacuation areas, nervous about being able to return in time for work. It raises a serious legal question of whether or not you can be fired, whether a business has the right to fire you for missing work due to a natural disaster. Joining me now is Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. I would guess that this is a multi-layered answer.
Well, it is a multi-layered answer because you asked a very complex question in your typically very basic, direct way. So the answer depends upon what you do and where you are. We'll start with where you are. These are state laws that regulate, so it might be different in Florida and Texas than from Georgia. What you do then depends upon whether or not you have a contract, and if you have a written contract, it will set forth the circumstances under which you have to be in. If you are a first responder, it doesn't matter what the atmospheric conditions are, you have to get in. If you are not a first responder, the law does not expect or require the impossible of you. And if the streets are impossible to traverse, then you cannot be punished for the failure to go out into the streets. So you employ a lot of people. You also have a very big heart. Would you fire somebody because they didn't come to work in the midst of this kind of what we're watching in Florida?
I love how you put him on the spot.
We've known each other for so long.
I know.
Get away with this.
I know.
With you, I'm not so sure, but everyone else would be okay.
But it's almost. But does this happen? I mean, from a practical standpoint, does this actually happen?
Apparently, it does happen, because in preparation for discussing this morning, we did find some cases of other hurricanes where, believe it or not, these firings were upheld. That is, there was no contract. The employee was totally at will, meaning the employment is at the will of the employer. And as long as the firing is not for something against public policy, you can't fire them because of their beliefs or their race or their age, but the failure to come into work the firing for the failure to come into work has been upheld. However, if you can get a jury trial, the jurors are not going to go with the employer, they're going to go with the employee.
Well, that raises the next question. If someone feels like that they've been unjustly fired and aren't in a position to hire legal counsel or representation, where do they go?
Well, almost every county in the United States has a bar association. That's a group of lawyers who will do some of their work for free. And almost all major cities in the United States, wherever there's a courthouse, there's a bar association. And where there's a bar association, there are young lawyers, of which I was once one many, many years ago. And they will volunteer their time. But bringing a lawsuit against your former employer on your own is probably fruitless.
It's also a reputational disaster for an employer.
Especially, I was going to say, on Twitter nowadays, with social media, you can really embarrass people.
Threat to sue might be as effective as having a high-powered lawyer bring the lawsuit for you, because the reputational damage would impair assuming they're in the public sphere, their ability to sell their product.
I want to move on to a story that will get you fired up.
Okay.
And that's what we're here to do. Switching gears, the Department of Justice is upsetting several prominent congressional Republicans by announcing it would not be reopening the investigation into the IRS targeting of conservative groups. Why would Jeff Sessions come to this decision?
I don't know. And a lot of us who were waiting for a Trump Department of Justice to come into power are very disappointed. And I say this, he's a longtime friend of mine, Jeff Sessions, are very disappointed with this Justice Department. Not only are they following decisions made by their predecessors, Hillary Clinton was extremely careless, but she wasn't reckless. They could open that up. Lois Lerner is not a good person, but she didn't break the law. A decision made by the Obama Justice Department, they could open that up.
But she's essentially off the hook now, right?
They're both off the hook now. They are not legally off the hook, meaning Jeff Sessions, the Justice Department, could change its mind. They're only legally off the hook when the statute of limitations has run. But why they're making the same decisions as the Obama Justice Department, I don't know. And I'm going to give you another example. This is really enough to make you pull your hair out. In these Freedom of Information Act cases, looking for who knew what when, the same team, the same human beings from the Obama Justice Department are resisting all of them in the Sessions Justice. So we're getting the same answers. We don't have the documents. You're not entitled to them. It's as if Loretta Lynch is still the Attorney General when it comes to Freedom of Information Act.
Why are they doing it?
There is a cadre in the Justice Department that doesn't change no matter who the Attorney General is, and there's an attitude, thank you for asking that, there's an attitude in the Justice Department that if we second-guess our predecessors, our successors might second-guess us. To me, that is reprehensible. Their job is to do the right thing, not to protect the reputation of their predecessors.
In the case of the IRS, is there another venue? Is there an Inspector General? Is there anywhere else this can go if the Department of Justice decides, and they stick to their decision,
right,
that they're not going to pursue this? Any other venues?
Well, most of the people that she discriminated against, and the discrimination was awful, and the emails are horrific, it's an easy case to prove, eventually got their 501c3s. Did they have damages? Yeah, they probably have damages in the bills they paid their lawyers to continue to negotiate and file and refile, so they had that would be their damages. Can they sue for that? It's a very, very tough question as to whether or not, I shouldn't say it's a tough question, it's a hard answer as to whether or not you can sue the government when it intentionally resists you and forces you to spend money. Because, as you know, the government has written laws that make it nearly impossible for us to sue it.
Right.
Steve?
I don't know if you would know this offhand, but there's prosecutorial abuse against former Senator, late Senator Stevens, from the Justice Department.
Yes.
Were any of those prosecutors ever really disciplined so in effect, the spirit of the law went down? Don't abuse your authority?
They were fired, and they lost their licenses to practice law in the District of Columbia. They did not lose their licenses, and they were not prosecuted. They should have been prosecuted. Their behavior was criminal. If I'm prosecuting you and I have evidence that exonerates you and I hide or destroy that evidence, that itself is a crime. That's what they did to Senator Stevens. He then tragically died in a plane crash, and then his conviction was overturned, and then all this stuff was discovered.
That's how we got Obamacare.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think that you just outlined
that vote.
You just outlined what President Trump calls the swamp.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Judge, it was great.
You did get my blood boiling.
I made you laugh too, Judge Napolitano. Always a pleasure.